The Good Doctor, Season 2, Episode 14. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The episode begins when Dr. Aaron Glassman wakes up and asks Dr. Sean Murphy, "Did you take my clothes off?" Then Sean tells him to expect underwear. Dr. Sean decided to take the day off from work to look after his friend and foster father, Dr. Glassman. Of course, Dr. Glassman didn't appreciate having a babysitter. He tried to convince Sean to go back to work, and Sean never takes a day off except for 6 days if he's sick. But today he's thinking of staying on a one-day vacation and not taking a day off. In the hospital, Dr. Andrews explains distraction osteogenesis treatment to a patient and her parents. The patient is a 16-year-old girl who lost her bones and soft tissue in an accident. The face of the patient, named Molly, was completely damaged in the accident. Karen, a 14-year-old girl who was involved in a car accident and may have sustained fatal injuries, including an aortic dissection and a pseudoaneurysm, arrives with EMTs at St. Bonaventure. Her mother states that her father passed away 3 years ago when Dr. Lim seeks to get in contact with him. They insist on taking good care of her and take her to OT, where she asks the doctors why Karen isn't waking up. In the operating room, the medical staff is aware of Karen's circumstances and condition, but Melendez wants to prioritize Karen's head injury while Lim objects. She asserts, "Heart trumps brain," and Melendez nods his agreement without even a moment's hesitation. In the next scene, Sean is lying on the bed when Glassman informs him that his 2 primary symptoms are nausea and boredom. However, Sean is unaware that boredom is a side effect of chemotherapy. Then Glassman asks Sean to bring the medication along with a medicine note, since he believes that this symptom is not from chemotherapy, but rather from relaxation. Then Sean goes out to fetch the medication. All of the doctors who worked on Karen's heart observed that her CPP was low. That way, they decide to prepare her for a hemicolectomy, which she could require. Meanwhile, we see that when Sean comes with the medicine, it's actually marijuana rather than medicine. Glassman takes marijuana pills, one to relieve his boredom and another for motion sickness. Seeing him, Sean also wants to take a pill because he's heard that marijuana improves ASD symptoms and performs a practical, albeit anecdotal experiment, and that's why he takes one of Glassman's CBD-laced nausea pills. Meanwhile, in the hospital room, the doctors attempted to save Karen by performing a hemicraniectomy on her, but they ultimately decided it was not worth it. The decision to repair the aorta ultimately led to Karen's death because they discovered she had no corneal reflex, no overlying vent, and no stem reflexes. Midway through surgery, the patient was declared brain dead. Meanwhile, Sean and Glassman have their round of indoor golf, and they enjoy golf. Glassman calls Sean as now Smurf is very high from ingesting pills. He asks what Smurf means, and Glassman continues by describing how the same name became Smurf. Your name becomes Smurf if you take the first letter and add the letter Murph. After that, Sean referred to Glassman as a glass, and they proceeded on their round of indoor golf, including the urn holding Grandma Glassman's ashes. Destroy everything you can see. While Shannon breaks down in tears when Dr. Lim informs Karen's mother about her brain death at the hospital. After a round of indoor golf, they rapidly become exhausted and sprawl out on the living room floor, where Sean tells Glassman about Leah's new lover, Jake. Glassman asks him, "Like scary embracing stuff that you didn't tell anyone. You share everything with me." To which Sean responds, "A dog defecated on your lawn." And then they laughed. Later, Dr. Melendez goes to Dr. Lim's cabin at the hospital and assures her that she made the right decision and wonders why she doesn't feel guilty. "Tell Lim the reason I'm feeling guilty." Then Dr. Melendez leaves. Sean and Glassman both get hungry at a certain point. A few Malamars are desperately needed. In response to Sean's question, the man describes Malamars as pure chocolate with fluffy marshmallows on a crunchy bed of graham, and then they walked away to use Uber. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Dr. Andrews went up to the mother, who was in tears. Shannon was aware that Andrews had come to see her because Karen's name was on the donor list, and she was ready to donate a heart and another organ. Shannon is ready to donate a heart and another organ of her daughter, but Dr. Andrews tells her that the accident had damaged all of her organs except for her face. So Andrews tells Shannon how Karen's face is the perfect match for another 16-year-old girl, Molly, who required a face implant. Molly was funny and sarcastic, and she's had to deal with a lot since she lost most of her bones and facial tissue in an accident of her own. She deserved a normal life, and she wasn't going to get another opportunity if Shannon persisted in rejecting a face implant. And at first, Shannon didn't like that idea, because she didn't want to see her daughter's dead face on someone else. When Dr. Claire and Molly got to the elevator, Molly was asking Claire a question. At that time, Shannon saw her and listened to her explanation of why she changed her mind. She decided to let go of her daughter and give someone else's child a chance. Glassman and Sean go off on a citywide quest encompassing 32 stores with their ever-so-patient Uber driver, played by Mo Gaffney of Absolutely Fabulous, when Sean orders a car. The Uber driver offers to propose giving up on the hunt and picking up a pizza instead after they run out of leads, but Glassman is insistent. He declines a pizza. Damn it, he wants those Malamars. When the Uber driver questions Glassman about why he only wants Malamars, Glassman replies that Robin DeMaine favored Malamars once he had calmed down. He then goes on to explain this to Sean and the Uber driver. Who is Robin DeMaine, you may be wondering? Glassman admired Robin in high school. The Uber driver then convinces Glassman and Sean to give up looking for the Malamars and focus instead on locating Robin. In the hospital, we see Dr. Andrews present Molly with a photograph of Karen and describes why she's the ideal match for him. Then, after being transported for many hours to Molly's procedure, they arrive. Andrews warned it would take hours. They had to begin reattaching facial nerves and things that Molly had lost before and would have to get used to. And so this is very complicated surgery, and the doctors didn't need her falling apart. In the next scene, it looks that despite the three of them searching San Jose, none of the Robin DeMaines they discover match the Robin DeMaine. When Dr. Claire approaches Molly, she tells her that Karen's face is a 1 in a million match for your face. Then Molly expresses her fear to Claire that she doesn't know how to accept such a gift. Claire then explains to her that her face is what everyone sees, and that this operation will change the whole world to see a new face. Meanwhile, they then go to Glassman's high school in Livermore to talk with veteran janitor Flake. Flake has worked at the school for more than 40 years and maintains track of former pupils because, well, that's not at all unusual. In the hospital, when a doctor arrives at the hospital to remove Karen's face, Shannon sobs and says, "How can I say goodbye?" Later, after getting out of the elevator, she sees all the doctors line up in what they call the Walk of Honor, which is organized to thank Karen for her sacrifice. All of the doctors get very emotional. Shannon kisses Karen, who bursts into tears, and Karen is taken to OT for face removal. Then we see after a trip down memory lane, he tells Glassman that Robin is married a dentist and moved to Portland, Oregon. In the OT, Karen, who's brain dead, undergoes surgery in the hospital with doctors removing her face. Then the scene is after learning Robin married and moved. They decide to go to Portland, Oregon. To get there, it takes 11 and a half hours. We see in OT, Karen's face was later removed and Karen was allowed to die. Then the face was taken to Molly's surgery. The next scene, they go by car to Portland, Oregon, and in the car, Glassman tells them that when Robin called him, he didn't say anything. Sometime later, Glassman, Sean, and their Uber driver hit the open road and arrived the next morning. Meanwhile, in the hospital, we see Dr. Lim and Dr. Mendez have argued about Karen. Mendez chose to follow Lim's suggestion by focusing on the heart, and Lim believes he only did so because they were sleeping together. She also came to resent how much Mendez was reassuring her that what happened to Karen wasn't her fault, because that made her believe that he secretly did blame her. Lim and Mendez got into an argument about whether he would have stuck to the same decision if they weren't together, and the answer was never going to be what Lim wanted it to be. She blames herself, and so she lashed out at her pseudo-boyfriend because it was easy. And so the doctors have been benched for parts of Molly's surgery until they could prove they can work together. But in the end, it was all worthwhile. Surgery on Molly had been successful, and when she awoke, she had a face she was proud of. She was able to learn more about Karen's life as well. Shannon, Karen's mother, stayed put and became friends with Molly's parents. The fact that Molly's parents didn't keep a closer check on their pistol and one day she managed to get it without their awareness led them to believe that they were responsible for what happened to Molly. The daughter lived, and so they knew they should have been grateful, but it was hard not to blame themselves for what happened when they feel that, as her parents, they should have been the ones protecting her. And in admitting that, the parents were able to help Shannon through her guilt because she thought she was to blame for Karen's death. The truth was, there was no blame. What happened was an accident, so Shannon soon handed over a few photos of Karen that Molly asked for. Molly understood the sacrifice that got her face, and in being remembered, Karen got to live on. In the next scene, we see before they get out of the car, Glassman opens up about his biggest regret of all. He tells his driver that he wrote something petty in Robin's yearbook that was born out of anger. He thought his crush was unrequited, then read what Robin wrote in his yearbook. "I have only 2 regrets, my haircut in junior year and that you never asked me out." Robin invites Glassman and his friends into her home and serves them, what else? Malamars. Glassman tells her that he came all this way to apologize, but stops short of reminding her what she wrote in his yearbook. After they leave, Robin pulls out her yearbook and reads what Glassman wrote. It's unclear if she remembers what she wrote in his. Back at home, Sean asks Glassman if he wished he'd never met Robin, knowing that he'd never be with her. "Not for 1 second," Glassman answers. Then Sean admits aloud that he's not okay that Leah is into Jake. The episode comes to an end. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to Lion Recaps if you'd like to see more videos like this. Turn on the notifications and leave a like to help the channel out.